Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
everybody? Okay. Judge, we filed I styled this as a notice of intent to withdraw motion, and then in the body indicate that we withdraw the previously filed motion to recuse. Sent a copy to Ms. Monica, and I think it was like I'm not sure if it was an emergency motion, so it would get filed with the clerk's office, but it has been filed as we discussed this morning.
Okay, so your client is aware of what's going on, of course, correct?
Oh, yes, sir, Judge. We spoke from the jail. He called me probably about 2 hours ago, find out what happened this morning.
Okay, so the sentence is hereby to be executed as indicated on the previous date. And the only thing is we need to make sure he gets his credit for time served. How many days credits do you have at this time, Mr. Davis and Aiden?
Judge, I'm going
to be getting out there tomorrow.
Yeah, it should, Judge. He had, as of Monday, 41, and the sentence contemplated was 45. So I'd say he has 45 or 44 and 3/4, somewhere around there.
So what is it, Aiden? We need him to get out today. So we need to get the credit.
He has
correct.
44 days credit. The jail should give him that extra day once everything is finalized. So he should be getting out today.
So, Judge, just out of abundance of caution, can we say 44 days time served?
44 days. All kind of jail, 44 days credit. Okay. So I did see someone with your client's last name.
I saw that earlier. Where she went. I'm looking on my.
Is that a relative?
I'm sorry.
Aaron.
Yes, I saw that too, Judge. I don't know where that went.
Well, it was in the waiting room, but now they're back. You want to, let's see, here we go.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Ma'am. Yes, you.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And are you related to,
Jason?
yes.
Yes, sir. I'm currently his wife. We are in the process of a divorce.
Okay. Well, the bottom line is he's getting out as we speak. We
Okay.
understand that he's supposed to return to the
Oxford House?
yes, ma'am.
Correct.
And he's going to do that ASAP. Now, unless you have some issues with that.
No, I don't have any issues with it.
Okay. So you had a chance to talk to Mr. Davis.
I did.
You did?
To talk to Mr. Davis earlier this week. Was it Monday, James? I don't know if James.
Okay. So, well, you're on a first name basis. Obviously, you know each other. So.
Well, I call him Mr. Davis, but yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I just want to make sure that she was aware of what was going on. You have any questions, ma'am?
I do not. No. I was just listening in. I didn't know if I needed to be here or not.
I'm glad you're here. The bottom line is that we're trying to set him up for success, and
Yes.
he's expressed the interest in moving forward. And I'm not an expert on these matters, but I'm told that the first step is recognizing that you have an issue, and so he has recognized that, and he wants to address it. So hopefully, we're hoping and praying that he find a solution at that location. Okay.
I do too, yes. And kudos to the probation officers. I have to say, they're doing their job and I appreciate it. And, stay on top of people like him. So.
Okay. All right. Good day.
Thank you.
Mr. Day, appreciate it. Good day.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Okay. Now, State, is Mr. Carson here?
Yes, Your Honor, I do believe so.
Okay. Now I see a number of people here. Heather Sprague, Teddy Rivera, Amanda P. Powers, Kelly Eason, Tanner Jones. Are these names with you, ma'am?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Christina Stifler for the state. Ms. Sprague is the victim in the case for the sentencing this afternoon.
Okay. Ms. Sprague? Can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, now what about Tanner Jones, Kelly Eason, F. Powers, Amanda, Teddy Rivera? Mr. Carson? Does anyone have any
Your
information?
Honor, Your Honor, I no longer see Mr. Carson as part of the meeting.
He was here a moment ago, Your Honor. I don't know if he's in the waiting room now.
All right, Mr. Carson. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Judge. I can.
Okay. You alone in your office?
Miss Hunter is present. Sorry, just out of the frame. Our camera is being a little bit weird, so she's sitting right next to me.
Oh, I figured so, since you had a mask on, I presume. Okay, what about do you recognize his name, Tanner Jones?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Jones is one of our witnesses.
Okay, what about, okay, I admit Tanner Jones. What about Kelly Eason?
She is a witness as well.
F. Powers?
I'm not familiar with that name, Judge.
What about Amanda?
Amanda Viday is one of our witnesses.
Okay, one is Edit. State, I just made you a co-host. You want to try to make a determination as who is Edit? F. Powers, as Miss Doug Hunter, is that a relative of Miss Hunter?
It is, Judge. It's her husband. He will be testifying briefly as well.
Your
Is
Honor,
he in the right there with you?
He is actually in my office, Judge, but he's in the conference room and he's on a separate. We have a lot of different.
Okay, someone said something. Okay, so therefore, State, once you determine who Edit is and who you said Amanda is yours.
Correct.
Also, Kelly Eason is with you. Tanner's with you. And what about F. Powers? That person, whatever it was, I don't see it anymore.
he's media, Your Honor.
Okay, that's fine. What about Edit?
I don't know, Your Honor.
You want to inquire? Miss Bethune?
Yes, Your Honor, I'll message them right now.
I mean, it's a public forum, but we just need to know who. Okay. Any info?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor, we can hear you.
No. Do we know who Edit is?
No, Your Honor, but they're no longer in the waiting room. I believe they just left. I tried messaging them, but they were unresponsive.
Okay. All righty.
The edit computer is Action News Jax. It's the computer that we record on. There's no microphone on that computer, so that's the reason he wasn't able to respond.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Who's speaking?
It's Leslie with Action News Jax.
Okay, all righty. No problem. All right, State Defense, we are ready to proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Carson, I presume you want to, you have further testimony you'd like to provide at this time?
Indeed, I do, Your Honor. And just as a housekeeping matter, obviously, we're here for the continuation of the hearing. We intend to present, I believe it's going to be approximately 5 witnesses plus the defendant. I expect their testimony will be rather brief. And then obviously, we're going to ask for a little bit of time at the conclusion to just sum it all up. But we are, at this point, we're prepared to begin calling witnesses if the court's ready, Judge.
Sure.
Okay. Your Honor, and again, at our prior hearing, we did call a witness, Miss Terry Rogers. So I guess technically she was our first witness. As our next witness, the defense would call, I guess we can just go in order. I will start with Miss Lusk, Christina Lusk.
Yes. Hi, Your Honor. My name is
Hello.
Christina Lusk.
First of all, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So is it necessary to invoke the rule? Does these other witnesses need to be in the waiting room? Does it, until there's time for them to testify? I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm just affording everyone an opportunity.
I'll defer to the state judge. I don't expect any really factual matters are going to be discussed for the most part. It's largely character.
Okay.
Your Honor, we don't need to invoke the rule. I think Ms.
Okay.
Sprague is.
And this is Mr. Hunter at the bottom of the screen. Mr. Hunter, can you hear me? All right, I can't hear you. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, all right, welcome. Okay, all right, let's Ms. Lusk.
All right, thank you very much, Your Honor. Ms. Lusk, would you please introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, my name is Christina Lusk.
And just because this is a court of record, would you please spell your last name?
Of course. It's L-U-S, like Sam, K, Lusk.
Thank you, Ms. Lusk. And what do you do for a living?
I'm an attorney. I'm an in-house counsel for a company in Destin, Florida.
Okay. And you currently reside in Destin?
I actually live in Panama City Beach and work in Destin.
All right. And from what I understand, it appears that you are a very old friend of Miss Hunter. Is that fair to say?
Yes, although she's older than I am, but yes, I've known her for about 25 years.
Sure. And how do you know Miss Hunter? How did you all meet?
I met her I believe in 1997. She owned a small business and I ended up doing some independent contracting work for her. And so met her that way and developed a friendship almost immediately and have been friends ever since. Okay.
And have you all always lived close to each other or have you lived sometimes very far apart?
No, we've actually lived further apart for some of that time. I lived in Arkansas for a while. She lived in Denver. And then of course she moved to Florida and then I moved to a different part of Florida. So most of the time within an hour or two, but sometimes much further.
Okay. So if you would give the court a bit of insight into who Debra Hunter is to you as a person and as a friend.
Okay, absolutely. Debra is one of the most multifaceted friends that I've ever had. She is compassionate.
Okay, excuse me. I don't see Miss Hunter on the screen. Is she here?
Oh, sorry, Judge. She's right here. Here, we can make this work. Here.
Oh, okay. All right. I just want to make sure. That's good. That's fine. I just want to make sure she was present. Okay, that's good. And she was hearing this. We good.
Okay.
That's all I need to know. If she could hear and see. That's it. You didn't have to move. All right, let's go.
Okay. All right. So Debra is creative. She's got an incredible work ethic. One of the things that is amazing to me is that of all the people that I ever worked for, and I have held a variety of different roles, she was the one that held us and herself to a standard of excellence unlike anything I've ever seen. She was a hard worker. She is very driven to do things well and with excellence. She holds her reputation as the highest regard. And of course, that ended up being something that was important for those of us who worked for her to keep in mind, that not only was our reputation on the line, but hers as well, and that of her company. But she never asked us to do anything that she was not willing to do herself. She modeled it for us. And as a young mom with 3 littles, when I met her, she was a real role model for me. But outside of her professional persona, she was also deeply compassionate. It was kind of funny. She would tear up very easily when she would hear of a need, whether it was my own or someone else that worked for her or a neighbor. So she came across as a very driven professional person, but with a really huge heart underneath all of that very easily came to the surface. So that's nice. She's funny, tender-hearted. She's quick to protect and defend those that she loves or the defenseless. We actually bonded over a love of animals, and she just has a soft spot for those who cannot defend themselves. So that's my friend Deb.
Sure. And Ms. Lusk, have you continued to remain close with Ms. Hunter in the aftermath of her decisions that led to this case? Have you been in regular communication with her?
Yes, sir, we have. We speak regularly. We also keep in contact through text and other things, but yes.
Okay, if you would, can you talk a little bit about how some of what has gone on in the aftermath has impacted her and her family? And you can be brief with it.
Yes, of course. Well, so obviously in the aftermath of all of this, her entire life has been turned upside down, and that of her family as well. She has 3 children, and obviously she's married, and she has others in her immediate vicinity who have been impacted deeply by this. But I would say the Debra that I know is very social and very open and eager to engage with people, and active on social media of all types, even ones that I didn't even know were a thing. But since then, she has had to pull back into really kind of an isolation bubble because of the lash out, the lashing that she's gotten from media and from other strangers and others in around the world, really. So she's become much more isolated as a result, and her children as well. Just it's hard.
I know. Now, Ms. Lusk, has she ever at any point expressed remorse or apology towards the victim in the case?
Absolutely. So that's been another kind of point of interest for me here. I think in a normal situation, people tend to be defensive when they're accused or under attack or whatever. And I have not seen that from Deb, not even in the beginning when she first told me what had happened and things started coming out on the news. She's been extraordinarily introspective. She's shown a brokenness and a humility that is really remarkable under the circumstances, I think. And just what doesn't defend herself at all. She's very concerned for the victim, has expressed remorse and more than that, repentance for her actions and how they impacted the victim and probably the victim's family, and certainly her own children, her own marriage, her mother and others. She's been open. She doesn't make excuses. She's very reflective. And she's really, honestly, the word that comes to mind really is, and I don't want to overstate it, but is brokenhearted about how her actions and the attitudes that she displayed that day have impacted so many people that she loves and people like the victim.
Okay, very good, Ms. Lusk. I have no further questions for this witness, Sean.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
I wanted, is it possible for me to make a statement just on my own words and not just response to questions?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess, I was thinking about it just from the perspective of anyone who's looking in from the outside. I've known Debra for 20 plus years, and good and bad, and, through children and all the other things. And I think it would be easy for someone who hadn't known Debra or doesn't know her at all to look at her life from the external and think that she's a spoiled, entitled, thoughtless human being with no concept of what life is like in the real world. And that's not true. When I met Deb, she was single. We were both, I think, in our maybe early 30s or late 20s, it's hard to remember, living in a third floor or maybe fourth floor, teeny tiny apartment in inner city Denver in a dilapidated old house. And she was like I was in my life, struggling to make ends meet, trying to start a business, chasing dreams that at the time were really just dreams. And she didn't have anything. She was just a normal person trying to do good in the world and trying to get along. She was running a small business, recruiting what I called an army of volunteers. We were independent contractors that would come in for a project at a time. And she was like herding cats, but she did it with grace and she modeled things for us that we didn't know how to do. And she did it in a way that she spent a lot of time making sure that everything was flawless, that any mistakes we made were ironed out. She didn't blame us for things because she knew we were, just starting out. But in the process of all of that, she worked so hard. She has a beautiful family now and things, but at the time she would take really old properties in the middle of downtown Denver that nobody wanted and redo them herself. She worked hard. She worked 7 days a week chasing her dreams. And this was before she was married. After Doug came along, they did it together. She learned how to do things like lay tile, to create stained glass, and they did it themselves by the sweat of the sweat equity. So she is not in any way what might appear from the outside. She has earned her stripes from the ground up. She is compassionate towards those in need. I've seen her give when she didn't have it to give. She is a generous, loving person. And I could go on and on, but I guess what I want to wrap up with is this, that Debra has expressed to me in long talks about this, her true remorse and repentance about what happened. And when I think about repentance, it's more than just remorse. It's not just about getting caught for what she did or whatever. It is the definition of repentance, and I want to read it because I didn't memorize it, but it's a sincere turning away from, in mind and heart, from actions or attitudes. It's a radical turning away from whatever it is that you're turning away from. It's a 180-degree reversal of course, and it's reflected in your mind, in your heart, and in your actions. And that's what I have seen with Deb. I love Deb as my friend. I know she's not perfect, but I have seen true, genuine repentance. It's not lip service. It's not for the cameras. It is real. And so that's what I would ask the court to look at as you decide today.
Thank you, Ms. Lusk. I have no further
Anything
questions.
from the state?
I don't have any questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
No cross-examination from the state. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would Judge, we would next call, actually, can we do Tanner Jones next, Your Honor?
Sure.
All right, can you hear us, Mr. Jones?
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Jones,
Thank you very
raise your right hand to be sworn. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you please introduce yourself for the court?
My name is Tanner Jones.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jones. And what is your relation to Debra Hunter? Oh, hold on. I think we lost your mic there, Mr. Jones.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Deborah's my aunt, a very close friend.
Okay. And have you known Miss Hunter for pretty much the entirety of your life?
34 years, yes, sir.
Okay. If you would, sir, I understand that you have a statement prepared regarding Ms. Hunter.
Yeah. Okay, right there.
Thanks, sir. Please proceed.
I'm writing you not with the intention of making excuses on behalf of Debra, but merely to offer a little perspective and insight to her character and circumstances leading up to and following the incident in question. I've known Debra my entire life. She has always been and continues to be an incredible support to myself, my children, and our extended family. Throughout my life, she has always been the first person I've gone to, regardless of the type of support I've needed. Beyond being one of the few adults that I could count on as a child, she has helped coach me in career aspirations. She's helped financially. When the mother of my children left almost a decade ago, she helped me buy my first home, and the list goes on almost endlessly. We affectionately call her the fixer because there is never a situation that arises in the lives of the people around her that she doesn't try to resolve with advice, opportunity, moral support, financial help, etc. Debra and her family moved back to Florida about 5 years ago to build their dream home and be closer to family. Their entire adult lives had been building up to this chapter, a time where their endless hard work was supposed to pay off for their family. Due to the need for brevity, I cannot describe the countless hardships they've had to endure over the last 5 years, but I truly wish you could fully know them. While trying to raise their young children and build their home, they were uprooted due to a house fire. They had to move around so many times I honestly can't remember. All while the construction of their home was constantly being pushed back for so many reasons, including 2 hurricanes, colossal and crucial mistakes by the builder and the architect, as well as constant battles with their homeowners association to the point where it seemed like hurting. There were so many mistakes by so many contractors throughout the process who took so much money from the Hunters and then abandoned them without the work being done. They resorted to doing so much of the work themselves. That short description may not seem like too much of a hardship, but I watched this never-ending process almost break them over and over again. It was a process that took years, and the people around the Hunters were in such disbelief. Nobody could believe that so many bad things could happen all at once and always continue to worsen without relief or resolve. As much as I wanted them to stick it out and stay in Florida, a part of me kept wanting them to throw in the towel and move back to Denver, just for it all to stop, just so they could find some type of normalcy. Within the same time frame, Debra's mother battled breast cancer for the 3rd time and started showing signs of dementia. Her father-in-law was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and the list could and did go on and on. Last year was the pinnacle of...
Excuse me, repeat what you said about breast cancer.
I said within the same time. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Within the same time frame, Debra's mother battled breast cancer for the 3rd time and started showing signs of dementia. Her father-in-law was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and the list could and did go on and on. Last year was the pinnacle of years of hardship and insurmountable stress for Debra and her family. After the incident that went viral last summer, Debra, her husband, and most unfortunately, their 3 children have paid a very high price for what happened. I have read hundreds of comments, emails, letters, text messages, postcards, and heard countless voicemails of extreme harassment, including death threats. Actual people threatening to harm and threaten death to her. Strangers from all over the country in droves chimed in to make sure Debra knew that she was a disgusting human, not worthy of life, and that her children should be taken from her, to name a few. There was not a single sliver of their lives that were unaffected. They lost friends, they lost their reputations, they lost money, they lost the hope that their children and their family would maybe ever have some type of normal life here. That video has been seen by literally tens of millions of people. This has devastated their family, to say the least. The neighborhood kids that always gathered at the Hunters were no longer allowed to play with the Hunter kids. Going to school, the grocery store, or even walking in their own neighborhood isn't safe from ridicule or harassment. I don't know that there's an honest way to explain the shame, the weight, and the effect this event has had on Debra. I kept waiting for the whole thing to completely and finally take her under. I knew that I was watching her crumble and certain that there would be no bouncing back for her. I was right, but not in the way that I thought I would be. Debra didn't fight back. She decided to fully lean into this moment and face what could be changed within herself. The weight of the last 5 years changed Debra into something she wasn't before, and this entire experience has caused her to shed all of that which was built up. I have never seen her more devoted to growing, self-aware, humble, forgiving, and kind. Your Honor, this letter can't and won't be able to express the complex events and lives of these 5 people. Please know that Debra and her family have suffered immense consequences due to the circumstance, and no matter what your ruling is, they will continue to pay for this in so many ways for so much longer. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
have no further questions, Your Honor.
State, any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
You may remain or you're excused. It's your decision, okay? All right, Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Your Honor. If we could next call Miss Eason, Kelly Eason.
Okay. Ms.
All right, Miss
Eason,
Eason, if you could
you raise
unmute
your right.
your microphone, ma'am.
If you can hear me, ma'am, raise your hand. You need to unmute yourself, please.
Yes.
It's
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
all right. Good afternoon, Miss Eason. If you would, please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Okay, it's Kelly Eason, and it's spelled Eason.
Thank you, ma'am. And what do you currently do for a living?
My husband and I own a business in Jacksonville, and I'm the office manager.
Okay. And I understand that you are fairly recent friends with Miss Hunter, correct?
Correct.
All right. How long have you known Miss Hunter for?
About 6 or 7 months now.
Okay. And are you all, in those 6 or 7 months, have you all become very close friends?
We have. She's one of my dearest friends now.
Okay, good. And I understand, Ms. Eason, that you have prepared a statement about your relationship with Ms. Hunter.
Yes.
Okay, if you would, please proceed.
Okay. I met Debra about 6 months ago at a women's Bible study hosted by a mutual friend of ours. We hit it off immediately, both having daughters around the same age. When we were first getting to know each other, she tearfully confessed to me that she was the Pier 1 cougher, and she went on to tell me about that shameful event and how devastating it has been to her family since. I promised her that day that I wouldn't watch the video because I didn't want to make any judgments about her based on a past mistake. Debra is now one of my dearest friends. We talk almost daily, encouraging one another, whether sharing a scripture or praying with each other or just having much needed girl talk. I've learned so much from her about parenting, cooking, business, and just life in general. She's helped me with my daughter when I was not able to pick her up from school. She brought my family a care package when I was in the hospital with COVID, and she checked on me every single day while I was there. Debra is loyal. She comes running to her loved ones when they need help. She is a great mom. She lives and breathes for her 3 children and husband. They know it, and they all adore her. Watching her suffer from guilt and not knowing what the future holds because of this trial has been so hard on her and her entire family. It's been very wish that she and her family would die from COVID. But Debra just turns the other cheek, forgiving them.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
We lost your voice there for a second. Could you repeat your last 2 or 3 sentences?
I said that it's been disheartening to see the public's response. Perfect strangers are going out of their way to say hateful things to her, wishing that she and her family would die from COVID. But Debra just turns the other cheek, forgiving them because she too needs forgiveness. I'm glad that I chose not to watch that video until now, because the person in that video is not the Debra that I've come to know and love. I would have missed out on a great friendship with a person that challenges me to be better and to grow in my faith. She knows that what she did was wrong, and she has sought forgiveness from the victim and from her own friends and family. But most importantly, she has sought forgiveness and healing from God. And in return, I believe he's changed her heart.
And I would just pray that the court would have mercy on her and her family and all of us who rely on her when considering her sentence. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eason. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay.
No cross, Your Honor.
So ma'am, so when did you have COVID?
I got it in late January, early February, and I was hospitalized for 5 weeks with it. 5 days.
So was this prior to or after this episode?
After. I've only met Debra since September, October of last year.
All right, no further questions?
Okay.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for your input. You may be excused. If you want to remain, you may as well. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, I believe Ms. Eason's husband, who is, I think, located at the same residence, he intends to offer some brief words as well.
Okay. Now, who is Amanda?
Amanda is another one of our witnesses, Judge.
Okay. So, okay. So who's testifying next?
Let's go ahead and call, if we could, Alan Eason, who is Kelly Eason's husband.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Mr. Eason?
I can, yes.
Okay, thanks, sir. If you would, please introduce yourself for the court.
Raise your right hand.
Oh.
You solemnly swear affirm testimony about provide truth, told truth, nothing but truth, up your God.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Eason, would you please introduce yourself for the court?
My name is Alan Eason.
Okay. And what do you do for a living, Mr. Eason?
I just recently retired from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I was employed there for 25 years. I retired as a police lieutenant.
Okay. You were with JSO for the entire 25 years, no other agencies?
That's correct.
Okay. And at this point, are you?
Your dad was with JSO?
Yes, sir. His name is Hugh Eason.
Yeah, well, for the record, I know his dad. In fact, we had cases together back in the day. Fine homicide detective. All right.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Eason, my understanding, like your wife, is that you, your family and her family met approximately 6 months ago. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. That's accurate.
Okay. And how would you describe the friendship between the families in the 6 months that you have known Ms. Hunter and her family?
Well, as my wife mentioned, I first met Debra and her husband at a small group that we hold at our house from the church that we both attend. I didn't know about this incident when we first met. It wasn't till later on into our friendship that I learned about it. I don't have social media. I'm not on any kind of social media, so I didn't see the incident until just maybe a week or so ago, actually. But when I met her, her and her husband have been like family to us. Our kids play at each other's homes. I send my little girl down to her house, and obviously coming from my background, I'm very careful who my children play with. And I guess as crazy as it sounds, as a policeman, I'm very careful with the friends that I have. But they have been a very close friend of ours. They come to our home regularly. We go to their home. We go to church together on Sundays. And in fact, Doug and I have become closer friends. We go to a men's group together. So once I watched the incident on the social media, I thought, who is this person? Because it wasn't the person that I knew. She was totally opposite. The times that I've been around her, she's always been very kind and sweet. And as my wife has mentioned, when she had COVID, she was down for almost a month in the hospital for several days. And we had several people bring food over to the house. I'm not much of a cook. So I had, Deborah was one of them. She fixed, I think, 3 meals for us during that week. You know, without friends like that, it's tough. And I could just say that she's been as kind as anybody that I've ever met.
Okay. And obviously you did not know the Hunters prior to any of this happening, but certainly you've spent a lot of time with him in the aftermath of this. Have you seen any changes within Miss Hunter just in the time that you have known her?
Absolutely. You know, I'm very skeptical about people, I guess, coming from my background. But she has been, when she told us about the incident, I was taken back a little bit. When I saw the incident, I was taken back a little bit because obviously it wasn't the best situation, and she didn't act the best. But I would have to say that is not the woman that I know. She has been very remorseful, and it seems like every time she comes to the house, she wants to talk about it and talk about how it has negatively impacted her children and her husband. So, you know, I know that she's upset about what took place. I can't see that I just can't see that's the same person. She's totally different than the one that I saw in the video and the one that I know today. And like I've said before, there's no way I would send my child down to a person's house if I knew that that's how she was.
Understood. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Eason. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
State.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
So, Lieutenant retired, you have a sister that's on the force?
I do. She's a lieutenant as well. She made lieutenant the day I retired.
Okay. You just passed the bars over to her. Okay, so we now for the record, with this sister, I had cases. She actually appeared in front of me. Unlike her dad and his dad, we had cases together when I was a prosecutor. This back in the 90s and the 80s. So I just need to make sure we set the record straight. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant, you can remain if you like, or otherwise you're excused. You know the drill. You testified a number of times in court. You know how it works.
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you. Good seeing you.
All right, good day. Okay. All righty. Okay. What's next, Mr. Carson?
Your Honor, the defense would next call Amanda Vaday.
It's Vade.
Okay, we have some we have some connectivity issues here, so I'm not sure because everyone's voice is echoing. I'm not sure if it's your issue or my issue, but let's take 5 minutes, 10 at the absolute most. Let's figure out what's going on here. Okay, all right.
No problem, Judge.
Okay. Hopefully we solve the problem. We'll see. Okay. Miss Amanda. And which, spell your last name, please.
Vaday.
Vaday. Okay. And raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear affirm testimony about to provide truth, whole truth, that's what truth so help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
You in a classroom or a laboratory?
No, this is our kitchen table.
Oh, okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ma'am. What do you do for a living?
I did work as a nurse, but I'm a stay-at-home mom now.
Okay. And where do you currently live?
I live in the same neighborhood that Debra lives in.
Okay. How long have you known Miss Hunter and her family?
Since we moved in, so around 3 years, I'd say.
Do you all have similar age children?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And are you all close friends? Do you spend a lot of time together?
Yes, I've actually prepared a statement, if that's okay that I read that.
That was going to be my next question.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I met Debra when we moved into the neighborhood 3 years ago. Her daughter became fast friends with my 2 older daughters. Since then, Debra and I have gotten to know each other really well. Our daughters are at each other's house almost every weekend. We jokingly call her our adopted daughter because they are best friends. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I might get teary. I am a nursing mom, but I'm also very tenderhearted, so I apologize. I talk with Debra on a regular basis. Not a week goes by where we aren't in communication with one another. She is a wealth of knowledge. I've learned so much from her and admire her work ethic and authenticity. She's an extremely loyal friend and cares deeply about our family. We've spent holidays together. We've had dinners together, had family game nights, did an impromptu race day that was hilariously fun. During hurricane season, we've stayed with them in Georgia, and we get together along with other families every Sunday night. All these things have brought us closer together. Our entire extended family is on the West Coast, and Debra, being sensitive to this, is always so helpful in lending a hand when we need it, and just being that friend that I ask first for anything. When we had our 5th baby, Debra and another close friend were happy to watch the kids a couple days while we were at the hospital. Debra makes herself available to people. She takes the time to get to know them. She is generous and compassionate. I have watched Debra over these few years endure pain and trials, but also blossom. About a year ago, her family started attending our church, and Debra joined a Bible study I facilitate for the church in my home that started this past fall. It has been amazing watching her find her faith again and listening to her tell me what God is teaching her through what she's reading in the Bible. I feel like the community she has found at church and how God has used a difficult situation to speak into her life has helped her with immense grief and stress her family has been under. When you live in a neighborhood with someone and see them as much as we see each other, they become like family. Debra has become like an older sister in a sense to me. She sees the messy parts of our family. She is encouraging and gives me pep talks when I'm having a bad day. She loves my kids like they were her own nieces and nephews. I am proud of the woman she is. She has been a lifesaver to have as a friend, and I'm very blessed to have her in my life.
Thank you very much, Ms. Binet. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
State.
I don't have any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
How old is your baby?
5 months. And I was hoping he wouldn't cry during this. He's hungry.
Well, he did. Well, he didn't.
Right.
Well, if he did, I did. We didn't hear. Okay, so, and okay, ma'am. Again, you can remain if you like, or you otherwise excused. I know you have your hands full. You say you have five little ones. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. So, Mr. Carson.
Yes, Your Honor. We have one remaining witness, Mr. Hunter, and then Ms. Hunter is going to make some remarks as well. So if we could next call Doug Hunter.
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess for Mr. Hunter. Okay. All right. Good day.
No problem, Judge.
Okay. You want to take yours back?
No, you can use it.
Okay. You ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. And Judge, at this time, the defense would call Doug Hunter.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, sir. Would you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Doug Hunter, Debra's husband.
Okay, Mr. Hunter. And how long have you and your wife been married?
We've been married since 2003.
Your Honor, he needs to be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, sir.
Yes, sir.
You solemnly swear from your testimony about to provide the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Absolutely, Judge.
Okay.
And Mr. Hunter, I think you just indicated that you all have been married since 2003. Is that correct?
We have been married since 2003, yes, but we've been together much longer than that.
Okay. How long have you been together?
We first met and began dating when she was 19 and I was 20.
Okay. So approximately how long have you all been together in some form?
Almost 35 years.
Okay. And do you all have children in common?
Yes, sir. We have 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl.
Okay. What are their ages?
Our eldest son, Tate, is 16. Rhett is the middle child at 11. And Quinn, our happy surprise, is 7.
Okay. And where do you all currently live?
We live in Nassau County in Fernandina Beach.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Hunter, I know that you kind of had a number of things that you would like to talk about, and certainly you have a unique insight into your wife, the defendant, by virtue of how long you all have been together. So let's talk about what you all's situation was kind of in the run up to all of this happening when she made a very poor decision in the summer of 2020. What had been going on in you all's life prior to that?
Oh God. It seemed like anything and everything that happened to us that could be wrong was wrong and went wrong. It began with probably the difficulties in finding someone to work with as far as a builder for the house that we had been saving and dreaming of while we were in Colorado for 20 years. And that kind of started the ball rolling. We rented a house in the same neighborhood to be close to it, so that the kids could get to know other neighborhood kids of where we were going to be permanently and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, during one of the hurricanes, when we had vacated, one of the trees branches had fallen on the house, and we were told by the fire marshal after the fact that it pushed the fireplace flue up against some wood in the chimney. And I guess one day, one of the cold days, fortunately, Deb had left home to go pick up our kids from school, and on her way back to home after picking up our children, she was passed by multiple fire trucks going down our street. And turns out the house that we were renting, that we were living in, was on fire, and they were working on it, trying to put it out as she pulled back and called me. So fortunately, none of us were home when it happened and nobody was harmed. After that, we immediately had to vacate the house because it was deemed unlivable, which was a shock to everyone, because you're told immediately you got to go find somewhere else to live. And thank God the Salvation Army provided a little bit of aid and provided some assistance for us to live in a hotel for the next week. But after that, you're considered to be on your own. So I was just starting a new job and kind of afraid to take time off of work, and committed to that during the day. So she took on all the tasks that were needing to be done to find us a place to live. And at that time,
The only things that were available were vacation rentals because they were fully stocked with things that you need to live: pots, pans, towels, beds. None of that we had. So the downside to that is you can hold on to a vacation rental usually for in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 weeks max. So I think we moved in excess of 13, 14 times in a row. It just to kind of stay afloat, to have a place to live while maintaining the kids in the same area so that they could continue to go to school and all of that stuff. We immediately had to also arrange to extricate all of our things out of the house that was on fire, go through the damaged things, put those in storage, incur the expense of that. Simultaneously, our house was being built, just to find out that our builder had made some major mistakes. And when he found out he made some major mistakes, he bailed on us and quit, disappeared. One of the major mistakes he made on our foundation caused us to have to petition the county commission to make a variance with FEMA to allow us to occupy the house. We also had a contractor. We had our front door and back door were stolen by a contractor that were special made for that size opening that we had to get rebuilt. The time it took to replace those at our expense pushed our house milestones past the HOA deadlines. So then we were fined by the HOA. We became kind of the outcast, if you would, of the neighborhood. People were starting to get aggravated with how long it was taking us to finish the house. It was looking like an eyesore because it went unfinished for so long, having to deal with that. So we were forced to deal with the county commission. And we finally got past that and had to move into our house before it was finished, taking on the bulk of the unfinished tasks ourselves, again, while trying to provide some normalcy for our kids and keep them in school, keep my job, keep going to work, all that kind of stuff. In retrospect right now, during all of this, it just weighs on you so much. There were multiple times where I just wanted to give up. Like Tanner said, it was almost like it was easier just to quit and go back to the life we had. But she was always the one that rallied the troops, kept us focused, reminding us of the goal of why we were all there, for the better life. And she was the rock. So she brought me back from the edge. I can't say how many times, but now looking back, it seems like everything she took from us was like air being inflated into a balloon, and it finally got to the point where it couldn't hold any more air. And then every time it would rub up against something, it finally rubbed up against something. And I think that was the incident where she just popped and lost it. There's not a person on this planet, I'm sure, that doesn't have 15 seconds of their life that they would love to have back. And I know that's hers. But even through this, she has showed grace and conviction, penitence, and remorse to a level that I've been impressed with. And I've known her for that long. I was lucky to meet her and kind of discover her as a diamond in the rough, but she's one of those people that she elevates everyone she's around. She makes you a better person just because she's in your life. And I can say that without question about so many areas. We were living in Denver, just coasting along, and she's always been adventurous and wanting to get the most from life. And she, convinced us that we wanted to, start working on old houses, and we did, and we're successful. I mentioned to her in private, I had aspirations of being an entrepreneur, but never thought I could do it. She gave me the confidence to do it, and I made the leap, and it was successful. It was one of the best things I ever did, and I wouldn't have done it without her. I'm so much better today than I would have been without meeting her so long ago. I can't overstate that at all. Since then, I'm a very introverted person and a very withdrawn person. It takes a long time for me to get to know people and to open up to people. And she's the opposite. She instantly wants to help people and be a positive influence in their lives. She has been an anchor for our kids because of the difficulties of this. that they've felt from not only just general public, but even in their schools, where my kids are getting called out of class by the guidance counselors for consultation to make sure they're okay, and weird looks in the hallway, all that kind of stuff. But what has impressed me the most about her through all of this is her steadfast repentance. On the day that this happened, she called me right afterwards on my cell phone, and she was highly emotional and crying and bawling and so upset at herself and could not believe what had just taken place. It was surreal, and she was so embarrassed that it took place in front of our two kids. And I just tried to calm her down and tried to basically to get her home. I didn't want her, being emotional and driving and all that stuff. And immediately after this, she started taking control again, like she does. She immediately went out and got tested to make sure she did not have the virus at the time. Back then, it was in early stages of all the stuff going on, and immediately said that, I need to write an apology. I need to make amend, whether it's accepted, or understood, or even thrown in the trash. I need to do this. I would have probably tried to lay low and pulled back from life. She chose to perceive this as a sign from God that this was put on her to make her a better person, and she has far surpassed anything I could have expected. She's sought consultation with our church pastor privately to deal with things. She has never once offered an excuse as to why it happened, or tried to deflect or lay blame. She has from day one insisted that she was guilty for what she did, and has never tried to take any other path. We have been contacted by multiple news outlets, both local and national, and she has insisted that it go nowhere. No wanting to sensationalize or further anything of this in any way, shape, or form. And she's had steadfast denial. She's really just taken this on as, this is what's been put in front of me, and I know what's right, and I'm going to do what's right. And that's been her course. She stayed that course. She was convicted prior to this, but I will say more so me than her. All that stuff wearing on you. In between there, we had a boating accident due to a storm where we had 8 people on the boat. We could have lost 8 people, but all 8 people survived, stranded on an island. That was very emotional, that she, again, pulled everybody together, kept family at the core, and just, she's always done that. Every time one of us strays from the herd, she brings us back in, and thank God for that. So that's kind of a jumble of how long I've known her and the person that I know. I feel very blessed to have met her, and lucky. I don't know why she chose me. I'm sure there are lots of other guys out there, but I feel like the luckiest guy in the world.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. So anything from the state?
No, Your Honor.
So when she was tested, what were the results?
They were negative, Your Honor.
So was that conveyed to anyone? Did she convey that to anyone that's involved in the court process?
I really don't know if it was in her letter. That was a private letter she chose to write. I didn't see it. And she's had personal consultations with the pastor and with the attorney, so I can't speak to that. I know she immediately went out and had it done, but I can't say if she specifically reached out to broadcast or advertise that she was negative.
And I can speak to that as well, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And Judge, just so the court is clear, Ms. Hunter retained my firm relatively soon after the incident happened. At that point, she was tested for COVID almost right away. The results of that, as soon as I think it was Mr. Edwards who was handling the case, those results were relayed to Mr. Edwards directly by me.
Was that ever conveyed to the to the victim state? She's shaking her head no. Is that this the first you're hearing this, ma'am?
Your Honor, this is my first knowledge.
Okay, all right. Okay, so Mr. Carson, any other witnesses, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Just a moment, Your Honor. Wait. You did.
I know.
You told me, and I talked to Kamala.
I know, but she's saying
Yeah.
she didn't
No, but that,
and you didn't.
no, it was conveyed to Kamala. It's fine.
Okay.
Your Honor, at this point, we would call the defendant in the case, Miss Debra Hunter. I don't know.
You don't want me to mention that. You told me not to get to it.
What does it matter? The information was conveyed the same.
Hey, Aiden.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss, it appears that Judge Ruth is no longer on the Zoom meeting as a participant.
Let me give him a call real quick.
Okay, I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Allie,
Yes.
he lost connection. He's trying to log back in right now. So if you see him in the waiting room, just let him back in, please.
All right, absolutely.
Thank you.
No problem. Judge Ruth should be joining right now. Judge Ruth, are you there? Judge Ruth?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor, we can hear you.
I don't know what happened. I was just, I was there and then I wasn't there.
It happens to the best of us, Judge.
Okay. Okay, here, let's see what I need to do. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Judge, you are sideways on your video.
Well, I didn't do it. Can you see me now?
No, Judge.
Okay, but you can hear me, correct?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, so therefore, let's proceed. We'll worry about the video later. Most importantly, can I hear you? Okay, all right, so Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any additional data you would like to provide? Any additional testimony?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, any cross state?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all righty. Okay. What about now?
We have video, Judge, but the audio is not good.
What about now?
There's a lot of feedback and echo coming through. Yeah, it's like stereo.
Judge, sometimes when you have two devices, if you have sound coming from both of them, it creates feedback. So you need to mute the sound, not just your microphone, but mute the actual speakers on one of the devices.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay. For the record, I don't have two devices. I have four. So, all right, let's go.
All right, we ready, Judge?
Yes, I presume you're going to call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The next witness that we would call is the defendant in the case, Debra Hunter.
Okay.
And actually, let me just ask, Judge, she's put her glasses on because she has some words she wants to read, but I think it's kind of fogging up. You want me to like step a little aside and you can take your mask off? Sure. Okay. So what I'm going to do, Judge, I'm going to prompt her, and then I'm just going to kind of step away so that she can take her mask off and read.
Just give me a second here. Okay.
All right, can you hear us, Judge?
I can hear you.
Okay, are we prepared to proceed?
Sandra, you raise your right hand, please. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, good afternoon, ma'am. Would you please introduce yourself for the record?
My name's Debra Hunter.
All right, Ms. Hunter, and you are the defendant in the present case, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, Ms. Hunter, I understand that you have some words that you have prepared for the court to hear.
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
Now, for the record, I received a letter and it was about 3 or 4 pages and it was typewritten. Is that what she is about to read? If that's okay, I just want to know if it's the same data, which is, it is permissible.
Yes, Judge. I expect that this will be a slightly modified and condensed version of her letter that was initially.
No, it doesn't need to be condensed. I just want to know.
Yeah, no, well, it is. It's condensed though, and there are a few slight modifications.
All
right.
Do I need to wait until he comes back on?
No, you're fine. All right, are we prepared to proceed, Your Honor?
You are.
All right, Ms. Hunter, please give your thoughts to the court.
Your Honor, if you've read my letter already, I'm not going to put you through having to listen to it all again. And
no, feel free. This is your day. This is your day in court. This is your day in court. If you so desire, that's fine.
okay. Well, I will just kind of, I guess, skim over some of the things because my husband really touched on a lot of those. But what I did say to you in my letter was that I didn't want to write this letter. My attorney, Chris, told me that it would be a good idea. And the reason I didn't want to write it is because I don't feel right about asking for mercy or empathy or any of that. This whole thing has humbled me. I just didn't even know that it was possible to be humbled as much as I've been humbled. And the remorse that I have and the guilt that I have that has occurred from that one very poor decision is what I want to talk to you about is the way that it's affected my family and how undeserving they are. My lawyers told me that you're fair and reasonable, and I told you in my letter that I'm prepared for whatever justice you deem appropriate. But I do want to share with you how my consequences, the consequences of what I did, my mistake, and how it affected my family and mostly my children. I mean, it's affected all of us and my husband, but the kids are the innocent ones, and I just want to make you aware of what they've gone through. This incident occurred over 8 months ago, but my children just still continue to suffer the indignities that were caused by what I did. I think they're continually embarrassed. They're continually chastised and mocked. Each of my 3 children have lost nearly every friend that they've had. Their kids, they basically the parents of the kids that used to be friends with no longer, permitted them to associate with us because of me. And, I know that that's because of what they saw, on that video. And I would have probably made the very same decision and not let my kids associate with somebody who did that as well. So I can't fault them for that. But the problem, that goes along with that is it's heartbreaking to see your kids struggle for something that you did. My daughter, she's only 7. She's pretty much, she's like me. She's an extrovert. She's very social. I'm sorry.
Mrs. Hunter, slow down and breathe, okay? What's written in your letter is a lot more fluid, and you're leaving out critical details. So take your time and go through it.
If that's what you want me to do, I will just read it. It's easier for me because this is
Okay.
very emotional.
Okay, do that.
Okay. It's heartbreaking to see my young daughter struggle with the loss of her friends and her limited understanding of why she can no longer play with them. My other two children have more insight into their loss, so there's no need for that constant explanation. In the past few months, my children collectively decided that they would no longer divulge their last name to anyone new that they met. And this decision came to fruition after multiple occasions in which a parent or a teacher or a peer would connect the dots that ultimately led back to their ties to that woman in the video. My children no longer engage in any type of team sports or otherwise, just to avoid meeting anyone new. But a couple of months ago, a new family did move into the neighborhood, and a boy the same age as my middle child pursued a friendship with him, and my son was very reluctant to befriend him given his past experiences. But I encouraged him anyway, and eventually he gave in and they became fast friends. For several weeks, my son was happy and almost carefree. They spent every weekend together, they had sleepovers, they built forts, and they just had fun being boys. My husband and I were hopeful, but then it stopped. The boys stopped coming over, and my son was heartbroken again. My eldest son was just starting high school when the social media frenzy was at its peak. There were thousands of posts, pages, and links being spread, tweeted, and shared all throughout our small town. And in the midst of it all, my son had to start high school, a brand new school where he knew no one and had no friends. And it's difficult enough to be an adolescent and starting high school as the new kid, but to do so during this tumultuous time and under the microscope of a small town made it nearly unbearable for my son, who was already an introvert. Like any normal 15-year-old, he just wanted to fit in and be accepted. Instead, he was shunned. His classmates would boldly ask him, and purposefully in the midst of a small crowd, if his mother was that lady in the video. It was like he was the son of the woman who wore the scarlet letter. And although he tries to hide his emotions from me to avoid I'm sorry, Judge.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. The reason that this part is so raw and emotional for me is because the last time I was in court, afterwards, the media was, the story, it just was more prevalent. I got a lot more text messages and all of that kind of stuff. But the reason that this particular part is so emotional for me is because right after that, my son was taken out of class and brought into the counselor's office. And they basically said, "We saw your mom and we just want to make sure that you're okay. You know, we know you can't talk to your mom or you can't talk to your dad, you know, and we just want to make sure that you're okay." And I just think that having my letter go public and having his teachers read it and his guidance counselor and, you know, just everybody, it just made it that much more worse for him. And that's why this particular part of my letter is so hard for me, because this just happened and I'm just having a really hard time with it, because he did come home and he did try to just brush it off like it was no big deal. But my husband and I, for the next 2 or 3 days, we just kept asking him, you know, Tate, what's wrong? Tate, what's wrong? He wouldn't tell us, but we knew what was wrong. And so that's just been really hard. I just wanted to explain why this particular part is so difficult because of what just happened with that. But anyway, just give me a minute. So his classmates, I told you, would ask him if I was that lady in the video, and I mentioned the whole thing about the Scarlet Letter. Okay, I'm sorry. He tries to hide his emotions from me to avoid adding to my guilt. But I know that my son is broken because a mother always knows when her children are hurting. And my son is very lonely. The few longtime friends he had at the small private school he attended during elementary and middle school have been forbidden to continue the friendship with him. This was after a classmate distributed the video throughout the entire academy. It was sent to every teacher, every student, every parent, and the entire office staff. And those two longtime friends, he had decided to add salt to the wound by removing him from the group chat that he and his classmates had been part of for 5 years while in school together. My son is trying to cope, but it would be a lie to say that he has not been permanently damaged by all of this unwanted and unwarranted attention. He has surely suffered the most of my 3 children. We are currently involved in counseling. Additionally, we are trying to enroll my son in a Jacksonville high school in hopes that he might walk those hallways without staring at the ground. We did just learn that he was denied access into that high school, so he's going to continue going to this school. The lives of my kids have been drastically altered.
Why was he denied access? You know?
It was an art school that he auditioned for.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay.
And
not related to this. Okay.
No, I'm sorry, no. But related to it in the fact that he has to go back to the school where he has the notoriety.
Okay.
The lives of my kids have been drastically altered, and it's especially evident in our small community in which everyone knows everyone. Ours was that house where all the neighborhood kids would gather to play, meet up, and just hang out. And I remember looking out the window one day and counting 13 children playing in our yard. But now there are only 2 children, and both belong to me. I used to be that mom. I was the nucleus of all the other moms. I was the one who introduced this mom to that mom, the one who planned the neighborhood gatherings, and the one who pulled everybody together at the community pool or for a barbecue. I think my kids enjoyed being the kids of that mom. But as soon as I went from that mom to that woman, that semi-idyllic life came to a screeching halt for my kids. Fortunately, the Vede family, Amanda, who you met earlier, has allowed our children to maintain a friendship with their children, and for that we are incredibly grateful. But my kids have been devastated by the loss of their friends and the life they once had. They used to ride their bikes around the neighborhood with their friends. Now they just watch those same kids ride around without them. They used to go to our community pool with their friends. Now they're not invited. Their weekends used to be filled with sleepovers and birthday parties and outings, and now their weekends are spent indoors and in the company of their electronic devices and virtual friends. My younger son asked me just the other day if I would get in touch with the mother of one of his old friends. He said, "Mommy, I'm sure she isn't mad at you anymore." But I couldn't reach out to her. I knew what her answer would be. There was no forgiveness, no forgetting, and she had not changed her mind. And just yesterday, my sweet daughter, our happy mistake, asked if I would write a note to the mother of her new best friend. She asked me to try and set up a play date for her, and I did write the letter. I will tell you that we were in communication, and then after this last hearing, when it was all over the news again, I haven't heard from her again. My daughter keeps asking me about it, and I do try to make her understand, but I just don't know how to do that. I'm aware that my shame and regret will follow me the rest of my life. We often run into people we have known in the past, and because it's such a small town, that's a very frequent occurrence. I watch as my kids lower their heads and turn the opposite direction so they won't be recognized or approached. And I know exactly what they're feeling because I do the same thing. I've avoided teachers they have had in the past, as well as their current teachers. I avoid old friends, parents of my kids' friends, their coaches, our doctors, our veterinarian, our realtor, my hairstylist, people that we hired for various reasons, and the list goes on and on. As a family, we collectively avoid anyone we recognize for fear that they might know. We no longer patronize the locally owned stores and restaurants where people knew us. We no longer socialize with anyone except for the handful of friends from our church who you met, most of them today, and who thankfully chose not to judge us, me. We no longer take our family bike rides around the neighborhood. We no longer wave at the neighbors passing by. We no longer make small talk with anyone while working in our yard. And it's clear that the majority of our neighbors no longer wish to associate with us on even the smallest of levels. I frequently tell my children that although gossip spreads like a wildflower on a windy day, eventually it will subside. But the truth is, I don't actually believe the reassurance I'm trying to provide. My kids are diligent in trying to hide it, but the bottom line is they're ashamed and embarrassed of me. The reality is that my family has been permanently scarred. And although that scar might fade over time, it will never completely disappear. My kids should not have to pay the price for my mistake. And I can overcome the ostracization. I can't even say this word. Ostracization. I wrote it, but I can't say it. I deserve it. My children do not. And although I am able to rationalize and even reconcile all of this, my children cannot. They have been greatly affected by the thousands of text messages, emails, phone calls, postings, threats, and even hand-delivered letters. How could they not? They live in the same house with the person to whom all of this venom is directed. It settles like dust around our home. You can't really see it, but you know it's there. And it is unreasonable and unrealistic to think they wouldn't be permanently damaged. They are children. They see, they hear, and they witness everything. And they just want it to stop. Judge Ruth, I could provide you with so many more details and incidents surrounding my family, as well as the magnitude and depth of the ongoing backlash that my mistake has caused my entire family to endure. And it's been wider and further reaching than any of us could have imagined. It's crept into every crevice of our lives. My children, my husband, my 83-year-old mother, my siblings, members of my extended family, and so many others have been tainted, harassed, threatened, and shamed. And I know that there's been a lot of fallout for Ms. Sprague as well, and likely for her family as well. I was and I am a very private person. I have never had an appetite for social media. The only purpose Facebook ever served in my life was to upload photos of my kids to share with family and friends. The full intention of my letter, Judge Ruth, is to provide you with a very small glimpse into the lives of my family. And what I have shared in this letter is really just the tip of the iceberg. And though it is very raw and surreal, what I have shared has sadly become our reality, and I don't want to be responsible for any more grief and strife from my family. My mistake will continue to affect all of us in some shape or form for the rest of our lives. I often wonder what it would be like if every one of us, as the flawed human beings we are, had their worst moments reduced to a short video for all the world to see and judge. And I would just like to add to that I think the hardest part of this is that that video shows me in the worst possible light on my worst possible day. And that's not who I am. That's not who I was before, and it certainly isn't who I am now. And if I could take it all back, I obviously would take it all back. You know, my husband's analogy with the bubble and the balloon, that's exactly what happened. It just kept, everything just kept piling on and piling on and piling on. And I just kept trying to push it down. And I just, that day, the pin just stuck in the balloon. And unfortunately for Miss Sprague, you know, she was the recipient of that. And for that, I apologize. And I believe that she knows that, because I did express that to her in my letter that I sent her very soon after.
You sent her a letter?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Your Honor, I have no further questions for Ms. Hunter at this time.
State.
Your Honor, I do not have any cross-examination.
All right. Mr. Carson, any other witnesses?
Not at this time, Your Honor. That would conclude our presentation.
State, you intend to call witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Heather,
Okay.
Heather Sprague. Ms. Sprague is present on the Zoom screen. She has a victim impact statement she wants to read.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sprague, if you would unmute yourself.
Ma'am, will you raise your right hand to be sworn, please? You solemnly swear affirm the testimony about the provide is truth, the whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm speaking with you today at the invitation of the State Attorney's Office in order to give the court some insight into the impact these events have had on my life. And I hope that my statements will aid the court in the sentencing process. In order to fully understand the impact of the defendant's assault on me, it's important, I think, to have some background information regarding my life leading up to the assault. My husband and I are the parents of 10 children. The youngest 4 are siblings who came home.
Did you say, how many kids did you say, ma'am?
Now I wonder if I should admit it. We are parents of 10 children, Your Honor.
10. Oh my, what a blessing. Okay. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Our youngest 4 children came home to us through adoption from our foster care system, their siblings. And the day following the finalization of our adoption, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And immediately I began radiation and drug therapies in an attempt to slow the tumor progression and treat symptoms. When those interventions failed, I underwent brain surgery at Mayo Clinic to remove as much of the tumor as was safe. My treatment was ongoing at the time of the assault, and I continue to undergo treatment at Mayo to curb the growth of the remaining tumor and to treat symptoms.
Sorry, what did you just say?
I said that my treatment was ongoing at the time of the assault, and I continue to undergo treatment at Mayo
And you said something else after that.
just to curb the growth of the remaining tumor and
Okay.
symptoms.
Yes, ma'am. Continue.
So on the day of the incident, when I chose to intervene after observing 15 minutes of escalating beratement and bullying of the store staff by the defendant, I chose the least possible.
Did you say 15 minutes?
Yes, Your Honor. The incident was already going on when I walked in the door, and it was a full 15 minutes that it went on before it escalated to the point where I felt like I needed to up to what was going on.
Well, what did you witness?
When I first came in, I noticed just 2 children unattended, and that had my attention. And there was a bit of an argument at the register, someone trying to make a return, and soon it became apparent that those children belonged to the person who is Ms. Hunter, who was at the register trying to return an item. It was escalating, her frustration was escalating. She was swearing at, threatening, and the store staff was pleasant and trying to placate, but she.
Okay, when you say swearing, what words?
I don't think that I could quote people, but
You don't know what?
I don't think that I could quote exactly what she was saying to them.
You don't remember the words? You can give the initials if you don't want to.
It's not a hesitation to say bad words in public, Your Honor. It's just that what registered in my mind was that here was a woman who was swearing at the store staff in front of her children. So I don't think that I committed her words to memory.
Was she speaking to one person or a group of people that worked at the store?
It was first a clerk and then a manager and then another manager. And she was attempting to return an item that she didn't have in her possession. She just had a picture of the item on her phone to show the store staff. You can see that it's broken. Why? And anyway, it was escalating to the point that when.
Okay, wait, did you say she was attempting to return something, but she didn't have the item, but it was depicted on the phone?
Yes. And she was getting increasingly furious that they could see that it was broken in the picture on the phone. Why couldn't it be returned? And they, at one point she said if they wanted it back, they needed to come to her house and get it then. And it was very intense, and it was escalating to the point where I didn't feel like I could just leave it be and walk out of the store and shake my head. So when Miss Hunter's child needed to use the restroom, and the store staff told her, we don't have one here, but if you go around the corner, we'll try to look this receipt up. And when Miss Hunter shouted that she was going to stand here screaming as loud as she pleased until all the customers left, until they made this right, and she positioned herself at the exit to the cash registers.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm hearing you correct. She said she was going to scream as loud as she could until everyone in the store heard what she was saying.
Well, they had been trying to calm her down, that she was upsetting other customers. And when they invited her to take her son to the restroom, and they would continue trying to look up the receipt, then she stated her intention that she would, continue her behavior until she got her way. And so it had escalated to the place where she was blocking the exit, and I felt like I couldn't just not step in. So if that shapes what my reasoning, I've never taken my phone out and intervened or filmed anything or posted anything before, but this wasn't an instance. It was intense enough that I felt like I needed to step in.
Okay, so then what happened, ma'am?
So I knowing that saying something to this customer would only escalate, I chose the least confrontational form of stepping in that I could think of. And so before I raised my camera and began visibly filming, Miss Hunter and I had no interaction whatsoever, not so much as eye contact. 100% of our interaction is captured in that short video evidence, and the video has not been altered or edited or shortened in any way. The defendant's children were not being filmed. They had distanced themselves from her and were toward the front of the store. And as the video indicates, it was only after Miss Hunter turned her aggression to me and walked across the store to carry out her threat that her child wandered over to investigate what was happening. At no time did Miss Hunter ask me to stop filming. And on the contrary, her first statement was an acknowledgement that she knew her behavior to the store staff was being documented. Her second statement was an acknowledgement that the video could be shared. And then, fully cognizant of these facts, Ms. Hunter still chose to escalate further in her aggression.
How did she convey? Do you remember the words she used to indicate that she knew she was being videoed and that she?
Yes, I believe
that the possibility was going to be shared.
Yes, so the video captures, I held my phone up, she looked over to me, and that was the first time she noticed me and the first time we interacted, and she said, "What, you really need this?" indicating she saw that she was being documented. And then she said, what do you need me to post it for you? Indicating that she understood that this could be shared. And so, cognizant of those facts, she still chose to escalate. I feel like she had adequate time to consider her actions. She had several seconds more to reconsider her chosen course as she crossed the store to me. And still, she gave herself permission to behave in this manner.
So what was the distance from that you were standing to her before she walked over to you?
She had positioned herself at the exit to the cash registers, and I was across the store, just at the end of an aisle. I would be hard pressed to put a number on the number of feet.
How many steps? I mean,
7 steps, 10 steps. I'm not sure.
So she had to walk over to you?
She had to take several steps over. So this was not me in her face or at an arm's distance. This was, there was some travel time between her and me wherein she could reconsider her course.
Okay, so what happened when she reached you?
Before she reached me, she anyway, little flustered going back into that moment, Your Honor, was
Okay, understandable.
she so she you know indicated, what do you want me to post it for you? And then she said, I think I'll get real close to you and cough in your face then. How's that? How about that? She took the time.
She said those words?
Yes, Your Honor. She took the time to give offensive hand gestures. I think the kids call it flipping me off, or the double bird.
Okay, excuse me, with the double bird?
Yes, the double flip off hand signal. I don't know what the kiddos are calling it these days. But so she took the time to do that, and then to say, I think I'll get real close and cough on your face then. How's that? And then she walked over to me, got close enough in my face directly in my face and coughed. And I feel like the time that she had to consider what her course of action was, when she saw that she didn't like being held accountable for her treatment of store staff, I feel like that was not the knee-jerk reaction of an overprotective mama bear. It was an episode that was rooted in privilege and entitlement, and it was targeted to exploit and attack vulnerability with an assumption of an immunity to consequences. As the court will no doubt recall, at the early point in the pandemic when this incident occurred here in our area, masking was not mandatory and it was not universal. Only those of us considered at risk were wearing masks in public. The day of the assault, I was one of very few wearing a mask, not only to guard my own compromised immune system, but to guard against the risk of transmitting COVID to my youngest children. Their early experiences of severe neglect and abuse had left them with a diagnosis of failure to thrive when they first came home to us, and therefore a weaker immune system moving forward. It was a time of universal fear and uncertainty, and I was doing my best to protect myself and my family. Upon seeing my mask as an indication of vulnerability at that time and choosing this particular mode of attack, the defendant's act of coughing in my face at the height of a pandemic was an act that was calculated to attack me at my weakest point, both physically and psychologically. I was stunned in the moment and increasingly fearful in the aftermath. The intention of the defendant's actions could only have been to transmit sickness or to leave me fearful that I had been infected. I worried for the health and safety of my family and wondered how in the world I could possibly isolate to protect them in a household of 12 if I had been intentionally infected. I scrambled to find COVID testing that was not readily accessible at that time, and ultimately I paid out of pocket to be tested. The results of the COVID test were negative, but the impact of this incident didn't end with a negative COVID test. I felt strongly at the time, and I continue to feel.
Let me ask you a question. So when she coughed, did you feel anything coming from her mouth other than maybe breath? Did you feel any, I know this is gross, that's not a legal term, but did you feel any saliva or anything?
It was a forceful enough cough that her spittle landed on me.
It did. Okay.
So blinked and recoiled. And so I had a mask covering my nose and mouth, but not my eyes. Yes. So I felt strongly at the time, and I continue to feel strongly today that there should be some accountability for the actions of the defendant. So this is why I chose to report the assault. And so as the criminal case has progressed, each time I've been called upon to interact with the process, I again experienced that anxiety and anger and other emotions associated with the events. In the end, Your Honor, I am not seeking any specific consequence, I would simply ask that the machinery of justice work as it's intended to, and that the defendant be held accountable according to the dictates of the law. The exact measure of accountability that would be appropriate in this case, I leave to the wisdom of the court, and your decision today will bring closure for me and my family in this matter. So I thank you for allowing me time to speak today, Your Honor. Thank you.
Just my understanding, independent of COVID, in light of your condition, your treatment with your tumor, you're required to be very careful about where you go, what you do, because not only COVID, but just general, any kind of germ, any kind of infection could be problematic for you, to put it mildly. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. As is the case with a lot of diagnoses, the cure is worse than the disease, and leaves me with a weakened immune system. So especially as the pandemic was hitting, our family completely locked down. My husband did all of the shopping. I just didn't ever go out. And this was a rare exception. And I only happened to have gone into the store that day because the air conditioning in our vehicle was out and I had half an hour to wait for an appointment. So I was just seeking a safe place to be for half an hour until an appointment time. And so.
Do you recall whether the employees, any of the employees at the store at Pier 1 had donned a mask, were wearing a mask?
I do not believe they were. No, Your Honor. Masking really was pretty rare. I don't recall seeing anyone else in the store that day with a mask. So.
Okay.
It has been my assumption that seeing the mask as an indication of vulnerability was what made such a random form of attack come to mind for the defendant.
Did you at any time, I want to make sure we're clear on this.
Yes, Your Honor.
Were you notified at any time that the accused or the defendant, Mrs. Hunter, had been tested, taken a COVID test, and it came back negative? Did anyone convey that to you? You shook your head when I asked a question. Was it ever conveyed to you? I want to make sure for the record. Were you ever informed?
I do not recall being informed of that, but it was a very stressful time. And I could be mistaken if it's in the state attorney's office files that I was informed, then I was, but I do not recall being informed. What I recall is weeks of worrying about every little tickle in the throat. Is that a COVID symptom? Is that, you know.
How many days from this episode were you able to ultimately get tested?
It took some time researching to figure out what is the incubation time. If I had been infected, when would I need to test to see if I was positive? And then several more days to figure out where I could be tested, waiting in lines that then got shut down until I finally found a place that I could just pay a high fee to be tested. And so I believe it was 5 days later. And then I continued to monitor for symptoms for another 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks with no symptoms, the worry started to dissipate. So.
When was your most recent surgery or treatment at Mayo just prior to this episode?
So I was, let me do the math in my head. I was about 10 months out of recovering from brain surgery, Your Honor. And then
10 how many? 10 what?
10 months. I had had brain surgery 10 months prior, and was recovering function and cognition. brain scans every 3 months, which we still continue. Just
After the surgery, you were convalescent, obviously. So how long after surgery before you were even permitted to go out in public? Other than to go to the doctor, of course.
This was enough prior to the pandemic that that my restriction out in public was more due with my ability to move and
Okay, I understand you had a compromised immune system based on what you said. So that's what I was speaking of. Okay, so now regarding the COVID test, you say ultimately, did you have any out-of-pocket expenses as relates to the testing or anything that?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, the cost of the COVID test was $150 out of pocket to me.
Okay. And that was did you have any other than we can't put a price tag on your anxiety, of course, and the inconvenience, but any other monetary losses?
Not at all. No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Carson, you have a question?
No, Your Honor.
I want to see the video. State,
Serious.
you have it?
Your Honor, we can pull it up if the court hasn't previously seen it.
I saw little bits and pieces at one of the court sessions, but it was a bit premature because we were not at the stage we are right now. Will this cause you some problems, ma'am, to view the video?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay.
Your Honor, I do have some of the video from online if you would like to see that.
I'm not sure. I'm not concerned about the source, but can you, whatever you have, let's see it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm going to, oh, you're sharing your screen. Okay.
Can you all see what's on the screen?
Okay.
All right, Aaron, I'm going to play the video off YouTube.
Do you really need this? What do you want to do? Post it for you? How about that? I think I'll get real close to you and pop on you then. How's that? Asshole. Wow. Let's go.
Oh my. So that's what you said, a double flip?
I believe that's what they call it, Your Honor.
Okay. All righty. State, you have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Carson?
No questions, Your Honor. I do have a bit of argument.
So state, what is your recommendation? Or do you have one?
Yeah, the state had previously made a recommendation to this court, and that will remain the state's recommendation today. There hasn't been a material change in any facts or circumstances to warrant any change in that recommendation. I believe it was an adjudication of guilt, probation to complete anger management, no victim contact, no return to Pier 1, a mental health evaluation, any community service the court wishes to impose, and obviously for Ms. Sprague to be reimbursed for the cost of that COVID test.
Mr. Carson.
Yes, sir.
What concerns me, so the reason why I'm telling you these things is so if you want to touch on them in your summation, you feel free. A common theme with the witnesses is that this was so out of character for her. This wasn't the person that we know. I've heard that over and over again. And it was a spur of a moment, but I'm hearing from the victim that this went on just 15 minutes. 15 minutes, I thought it was just, this whole interaction only took place in about 5 seconds, but this whole tirade took place at least 15 minutes. And also, she shot a double bird, walked over to her. And until now, I didn't realize when she coughed, the lady actually felt wetness. And also she threatened to yell and raise her voice in the store to the extent that every customer in the store heard her. Also concerns me is that when her letters, the letter she wrote, she talked about what impact it had on her children and her family. And I understand the impact it had on.
I'm still in the sentencing hearing.
It had on the children. They didn't create this problem, and the husband didn't create this problem. And she talked about how it changed her world, and she's getting the nastygrams on Facebook and things of that nature, and they can't go to the country club or wherever, can't play soccer. I get that. But I've yet to see any expression or a significant expression on her regret about the impact it had on the victim in this case. The lady had surgery, she's had cancer. Now I'm finding out that she has these children who had some issues, potentially. They may have had compromised immune system. So I'm not hearing, I didn't hear much about your client's concern for the actual victim in this case. She talked about how it, how much she suffered and her family has suffered, but I haven't heard about the potential deadly impact this could have had on the victim. Not only because of COVID, but someone who has cancer and a compromised immune system, and you add the children aspect, it could have been deadly consequences. So I hadn't heard any mention of any of that. And in fact, I'm shocked to know that the victim, this is the first time she heard that the accused had taken the COVID test and it was negative. You would think that would have been something she would have wanted to get to the victim as soon as possible. anyway, and this COVID is a reality. Over 500,000 people have died as a result of COVID and COVID complications. It started out, it says the doctors and the experts, the medical providers said, in no time flat, all of us will know someone who was affected by COVID. Then it changed to now everyone in this country will know someone who succumbed and passed as a result of COVID. Across the country, Florida, even in my courtroom, in the courthouse, we've lost people. My bailiff lost, everyone in this household had COVID, and he lost his wife and his mother-in-law to COVID. So
Very early on.
and not to mention, even if she didn't have COVID, she had a compromise. This is so anyway, those are my thoughts. So I'll let you talk about it in your summation. And I saw in the letter she mentioned that she was protective of her children. But 15 minutes, and the children, the victims said, were not in the vicinity, or they were happy-go-lucky doing something at a different location. Also, I heard she said she was concerned about social media and things of that nature. And I heard her say, here, let me give you something to put on social media in so many words. So anyway, all right, so Mr. Carson.
Yes, Your Honor. So I think it's probably going to be best, Judge. Let me start by addressing some of the points that the court just brought up. First off, in terms of the test, I can absolutely offer for the court, and I can go into my office and look at my case notes on my software here. I don't have the ability to do it as I sit right here. But I know for a fact within, I think, a few days, I don't remember the exact time period because it's been a while, but within a few days of all this happening, I had a negative COVID test in my hand, and that was absolutely relayed to the state attorney's office. I don't recall, I'm fairly certain it was to Mr. Edwards that it was relayed to. I feel like there was an intern in your division at some point. It might have gone to her, but I know that prior to arraignment in the case, which I think looking at the file was in August, I know that information had been conveyed. Certainly that's horrible if Ms. Sprague did not get that information, because I'm sure that was a source of a lot of anxiety.
Assuming what you say is accurate, I know you to be an honorable man, but it's unconscionable that she wasn't immediately notified that it was a negative results. Then of course her concern would be just her compromised immune system in general. But all right, continue.
And I fully understand that, Judge. I'm certainly not disputing that point. I mean, that's absolutely a big deal. I guess the practical issue, there's a no victim contact order in place for my client, and I tend to just not go straight to a victim, particularly in a case where she probably just doesn't want a cold call from a defense attorney. So just as a practical matter, I mean, I don't want to put her on the spot or anything like that. So I simply relayed what information I had to the state attorney, who my understanding was that they were in regular contact. I mean, if that was not accurate, I certainly apologize for that. I mean, that was in no way, shape, or form my intent. I agree with the court. It is something that needs to happen very quickly given the circumstances. I completely agree with that. But again, Judge, it was something we dealt with very quickly. And we tried to relay the information to the best place that we could. So as far as that's concerned, that's kind of how that unfolded. Now, in terms of some of the other issues that the court addressed, as far as what was in the store, obviously what was captured on video it's just simply not good in terms of the picture it paints regarding Miss Hunter. And I don't doubt that there were probably some things in the lead up to the, I think, 40 seconds of video that we just saw that were likewise rather unflattering. From what I understand, just even from reading the arrest and booking or the affidavit for the arrest warrant in the case, I think there was a degree of escalation that went on. I don't believe that this was a situation where Miss Hunter just stormed into Pier 1 screaming and looking for a fight. I mean, I don't doubt that there was escalation. There was certainly frustration. I have oftentimes wanted to scream when I'm talking to customer service about something. And again, it doesn't, I'm certainly not giving blessing to the behavior, but I get the sense that there was a progression here.
I need
It
to
wasn't
say for
just,
the record, I have shopped at my family at that Pier 1, and I never had any kind of issue. I mean, I never had an issue.
Judge, I'm certainly not
Staff
saying,
was always very accommodating, very accommodating.
I'm not disputing that in the least, Judge. And again, my client has indicated that this was all of her doing. This is not a circumstance where she's trying to say anyone from, Pier 1 or Miss Sprague got out of line. She has never indicated that to me on any level. What I sense happened is that there was quite a bit of backstory as far as the issue with Pier 1. It progressed to a point where she went to the store, her frustration grew and continued to grow. And at some point it spilled over into something that was not appropriate behavior, which then just exploded into the 40 seconds that were caught on video. And again, not justifying it, not trying to excuse it. It's there. The video absolutely speaks for itself. And it is not a situation where that behavior should be condoned or in any way supported. And candidly, Miss Hunter herself has been very forthright in the sense that she knows she messed up horribly on that day, and she knows that it is not something that is appropriate. She knows that for a fact. So as far as that's concerned, though, Judge, I obviously wasn't there. I did not witness what happened in the run-up to the video, but I can, just the way that some of the reports in the case, I just get the sense that there was a progression to it. It wasn't just her going in there immediately looking for a fight and just blowing her lid at everyone around her. And again, that's just my take on the situation, but I have spoken about that with my client. And I have also reviewed a lot of information in the case that I think to a degree that is actually how that all progressed. Again, doesn't justify the ultimate behavior. What the tail end of it, what was captured on video is certainly less than what we would want from someone.
Does your client disagree that that she was problematic, to put it mildly, for close to 15 minutes before she basically coughed in the lady's face? Is she saying that's not accurate?
Well, may I have just a moment with my client, Your Honor? She may be prepared to answer the question herself.
You ask her.
Okay, can I have just a moment?
Sure. And did she threaten to scream so everyone in the store could hear her? Is that accurate?
All right, Your Honor. If we may, Ms. Hunter was previously sworn. If I may elicit some brief testimony regarding the court's question.
You heard the testimony that you were ranting and raving for about 15 minutes. Is that accurate?
Yes, that was accurate. I was ranting and raving for 15 minutes, but I had been in there for 40 minutes trying to resolve it peacefully.
Okay,
and that wasn't happening.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Did you threaten that you were going to scream so that everyone in the store could hear you?
I never did that.
No, did you threaten?
No, sir, I did not.
You never said that.
I never threatened that I was going to scream. No, sir.
You didn't say
Never.
anything. Did you say anything close to that?
No, sir.
Oh. All right, Mr. Carson.
Yes, Your Honor. And so, Judge, to address the one other main point of concern that the court expressed, in terms of an apology, I get that the court feels that much of Miss Hunter's presentation addressed the fallout from kind of her personal life and from the family angle. It absolutely did. But she was indeed very apologetic. And I think part of her issue in the circumstance she's in is, I mean, there's really only one way to apologize, which is what she said. She's not able legally to have interaction with Miss Sprague. She did author a letter of apology very early on, and candidly, it was before I ever even mentioned the phrase letter of apology. Frankly, it was before I ever even spoke to the state in the case. So, I mean, she did from the get-go try to do that, but I think part of her frame of reference when it comes to apologizing, she's been limited in what she can present or what she can do by virtue of the way that the case has unfolded and conditions.
Okay, she wrote a lengthy letter to me. I'm not sure if you were aware of it until I mentioned it in court. And I gave her an opportunity. I told her to slow down and go through it and make sure she had a chance to put everything on the record for the opportunity to testify. But I've yet to hear her say anything that she was concerned about the victim's physical well-being, her health, or what impact of it must have had on her and her family, considering she was in treatment for cancer with surgery and things of that nature, not only for possible COVID exposure, but from just germs in general with a compromised immune system. And I didn't realize that her children had compromised immune system, but there was no mention from your client of concerns about what her mental and physical state must have been after she coughed on her. And not only with her breath and whatever, she actually felt dampness, or whatever you want to call it, coming from your client's mouth. I've yet to hear her say that, you know, I regret that I put her through mentally and physically, and her family, and it could have been a death sentence.
I don't dispute that, Judge, and the court's concern is not lost on me. To be fair, I know
it's not lost on you, but it seems like it's lost on your client. Go ahead.
Judge, what I'm getting at, though, is some of what the court is expressing in terms of Miss Sprague's children. And candidly, at the moment that this all transpired, obviously my client was not aware of Miss Sprague's personal medical condition. She certainly came to learn it. But as it relates to her medical condition, as it relates to her children, all the stuff with the children, the fact that there may have actually been, I guess, spittle that went onto Miss Sprague's face, I don't think any of us knew that until we saw Miss Sprague's letter, which was, I think, about a week ago. And then some of the other information just came out in court today.
I didn't see a letter until the only thing I know is what she testified to today.
I understand, Judge. But what I'm saying is there was a letter very early on in the case that was authored with no prodding from me, that my client sent directly to the victim, in which she expressed concern, regret, and apology for her behavior. Furthermore, today she did indicate that she is incredibly sorry for the impact that her behavior had on Miss Sprague. I mean, in my experience, Judge, I mean, it's not something that she necessarily needs to go on and on about. I think that the court heard information from a number of witnesses who offered that she truly has expressed remorse in all areas of her life. And this has resulted in some significant introspection in which she has looked at herself in a way that she probably did not before. And just so we're very clear on some of what the court discussed in terms of the concerns that much of it talked about the fallout for her children and her family, that's not being offered, Judge, as to try and play a sympathy card or to try and convince the court that because her kids have had a hard time or her husband's had a hard time.
Oh, no. I didn't interpret it.
No. And I'm not suggesting as such, Judge, but just as a practical matter, I think that it needs to be clear. The reason that all that has been presented is so that the court can see that she has been incredibly penitent and has truly made changes from the person that was captured on that video. No one is going to sit here and say that what's on that video is remotely acceptable, and my client feels horrible and everyone connected to her feels horrible that Ms. Sprague was put through all of this really through no fault of her own. And when something goes onto the internet and goes viral and gets a mind of its own, it's absolutely brutal to deal with the fallout of that. And it's not that that was by design. Ms. Sprague didn't do that on purpose. No one's saying she did. And we hate that she's been dragged along for this ride as well. But at the end of the day, Ms. Hunter has taken significant changes in her life, which have really resulted in a serious look back at the person she was and the person she is now. We heard from some very powerful witnesses who show the change that has happened from who she was before and who she was after. And it wasn't just all this was, happened in a vacuum on the day in question in the summer of 2020 at Pier 1. She had a number of hardships that she had dealt with in the run up to that, which put her in a position where there was just one more thing and one more thing. And eventually it just blew up. And unfortunately, exactly as Ms. Hunter said, Ms. Sprague was the unfortunate person who just ended on the receiving end. She didn't deserve that, particularly given what we know about her now. It's horrible that she was put into that position. And I hate that any of us are here having to have this conversation right now. But I mean, here we are. This is where we are at. And when push comes to shove, we heard that Ms. Hunter, in spite of her glaring issues and horribly poor decision on that day, is a loving wife. She's a dedicated mom. She's an engaged member of the community. She's a businesswoman. And the way in which she chose to deal with the issue on that day is not necessarily indicative of the person that she was. But even if it were, the person that she has since become is dramatically different than that. And, when it comes to the court system and the way that all of this gets dealt with, there certainly is the idea of punishment and, retribution as far as things that people have done. It's a given. But I think that the court also should look at someone's ability to change and their true penitence in a matter, which by all accounts, it's there. And Ms. Hunter really has taken steps to correct the issues and deal with some of the underlying problems.
What steps you taking?
Judge, she has regularly been attending her church. She has been forced to close off her social circle and live very closely and tightly with a number of friends. The majority of her remaining personal friends were the people who testified today. And every one of those individuals spoke very, very highly of the changes that she has made and the progression that she has made since all of this happened. Her husband spoke very well to it, as did everyone else. And so I would urge the court to give a lot of weight to that information. And it's not that we are in any way, shape, or form downplaying the direct and serious issues that Ms. Sprague had to deal with in the fallout of this case. It's horrible. We hate that she was ever put in that position. But once something is done, we cannot go back and change it. And when Ms. Hunter has taken significant steps to move forward and do things to correct the behavior that got her there, I would urge the court to put a lot of weight into what all those individuals said and to give her an opportunity to move forward and show that she is capable of conducting herself appropriately, which is precisely what the joint recommendation of the state and the defense would do should the court consider that. And that would be our request.
Regarding social media, I'm not on social media, so I wasn't aware of all of the social media data that was out there, so to speak, until when she sent me a letter and then she attached a copy of, I guess, of some information that she had became aware of, and also she mentioned it in her letter. So I was not aware of it, of any of that, until she brought it to my attention. Now, Ms. Sprague, he mentioned that her letter was had expressed remorse or addressed some of the concerns that I had, and I saw you shaking your head. Did you receive a letter from her? Unmute yourself, ma'am.
Is that
did you receive a letter from her?
I did receive a letter that I wasn't sure was actually from her, but now I understand that yes, that was actually from her. It was several months after the incident.
Did it articulate any any information different from what she testified to today?
She said she didn't know it was.
I felt like, I'm sorry, there's.
Okay, go ahead.
I did receive a letter. I felt like the letter was almost entirely absorbed in the defendant herself, with the exception of the phrase, I not only apologize, but thank you. Other than that, the entire letter was about the defendant and what she's gone through. And so it was about her. So it was, anyway.
Did it mention anything about concern for your health, your physical and mental well-being?
Not at all, Your Honor.
Or how devastating this could have, it was, and it could have been even more devastating to you and your family. Any mention of that?
There was no.
Okay, is there anything else from the state defense?
Judge, if I may, can I pull the letter of apology so that my client can read it into the record?
Okay.
All right, if I may have just a moment, Judge. You know what, Your Honor, I think it might be sitting on my desk. May I run and grab it?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, I apologize, Your Honor.
No problem.
All right, and Ms. Hunter, if you would just read your letter of apology into the record.
Dear Heather, it has been heavy on my heart to contact you for quite some time. I want you to know this is a private letter. It is not court mandated. It is of my own volition and choosing. Simply, it is just something I felt strongly compelled to do. The day prior to my Pier 1 visit, I prayed and asked God to give me a wake-up call in which the ramifications would impact me enough to cause me to initiate some major changes in my life. I had been very angry, resentful, and bitter as a result of circumstances that had hugely impacted my family and I over the last couple of years. All that negativity just continued to build up and fester, and it was taking a toll on every aspect of our lives. I knew it was going to take something drastic to get my attention because I had become so hardened and intolerant. And this was the reason for the prayer the day before our paths crossed. The incident at Pier 1 is exactly what I needed to get my spiritual life back on track and in order. So it is with great sincerity that I not only apologize to you for my actions, but I also want to thank you. Without the severity of the consequences, fallout, and collateral damage from the poor choices I made that day, I am certain I would not have made any changes at all. Instead, I am so grateful for the impact it has had on my life because it has allowed me to forgive, let go, and finally move forward with a peacefulness and calm that I haven't had in many years. Sincerely, Debra Hunter.
And just very briefly, Your Honor. Sorry. Go ahead. Judge, in terms of the timing of that letter as well, I think part of the issue is much of the information that we learned about Ms. Sprague and her health difficulties came after that particular letter was authored. So I get the court's concern and I understand what Your Honor is saying. I think that the time at which that letter was authored was prior to some of the revelations that we now know. And certainly I know that right now on the spot, Ms. Hunter will gladly apologize for any of the issues that this has caused, health, family, stress, anxiety, or otherwise, to Ms. Sprague. I mean, she'll absolutely do that. I feel like she did that in her read-in that she did in her personal letter. But if the court feels that she is less than sincere in that, she's sitting right here and she will absolutely address those issues.
Listen, she's already testified, and she wrote me a letter after she was aware, and she read the letter, and she was given the opportunity to testify today. So there's no need to do that. So is there anything else we need to address before we go forward with sentencing?
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
I mean, are we still getting into all that?
Well,
Mr. Carson?
sorry, just a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Sorry, just addressing a minor.
Take your time. You need 10 minutes or so? Mr. Carson?
No, Your Honor, I do not need 10 minutes. I'm prepared. They're just the way that we kind of jumped into argument because I was following the court's points. My clients just asked that I address a number of other issues. I'll be brief. I'm not
No,
gonna
no,
drag
take
it
your
out.
time. It's just her day in court. Please.
Understood, Judge. Okay. So what I will offer, Judge, in terms of, say that again. Okay. What I will offer, Judge, in terms of some of the considerations that we would ask the court to make, and actually I think it is prudent that I address it anyways. I know, Judge, you indicated that you're not heavily involved with social media, things of that nature, and I get it.
I'm not heavily not involved. Period.
Not involved. Which, candidly, I wish more people were in that position, because it, by and large, has probably hurt us more than it's helped us as a society. But that's an aside. It's there, and it's in the forefront of many of our lives. And one of the things that has always kind of struck me about this case, the way in which something goes viral and kind of does this snowball where it just grows and grows and grows has very much struck me about this situation. And some of what we submitted to the court, we sent over a number of correspondences to Your Honor, and they weren't done for shock value. They were only a drop in the bucket in terms of what sort of, I think the term that my client used was venom, in terms of what sort of venom came at her. And again, it doesn't justify, or it doesn't necessarily punish in the way that a court could as far as her behavior on the day in question was concerned, but it is something that has fundamentally changed her life. And when Miss Hunter was what is called doxxed, when she was put out there, her business, her family, where she lived, all of those things, it resulted in this massive fallout where she lost a business that she had spent huge amounts of time and energy building, and just straight up lost it. She owned vacation rentals through Airbnb and VRBO, and she was just shut down. One of the correspondences we sent to Your Honor was a message on social media that directed individuals to go to those sites and complain so that her business was shut down. And they were successful in doing that. And that was what she did. Her husband works. She maintained and dealt with those rentals, which was a business she had built over a protracted period of time. And she just straight up lost that in the immediate fallout from this. And that's just the economic toll. The court did hear a lot about the personal toll that was undergone by her and her family. And again, that doesn't minimize what Miss Sprague went through here. She went through all the same, independent of how all of the internet masses addressed Miss Hunter. But at the end of the day, it is and continues to be an absolutely massive price that she has paid as far as everything that went on here. She had tenants that she lost in her houses just by virtue of knowing who she was. That in a sense, scarlet letter that she was branded with by virtue of the internet just created absolutely massive fallout that is borderline unimaginable for someone who has not been in the crosshairs like that. And in the days of social media, 15, 20 years ago, yes, this would have been the same issue in the sense that Miss Sprague had to deal with everything related to the case, but it just would not have gained nearly such notoriety, because that's a product of the age in which we live and the way that the internet, viral videos, and all of that function. So it's just the reality of the situation. We can't change it, and it's not anyone's fault, but it is the reality. And it's incredibly difficult when you wake up every single day and are forced to walk into a grocery store wondering how many people here have seen me at my absolute lowest. She has a YouTube video with 10 million plus views. She just mentioned 78 million as a number. The one I happened to look at last night was around 11 million. That's just massive. And that's what resulted in so much of the direct personal fallout that she has suffered as a result of this. And I think one of the really salient points about all of this, Judge, is these days, when someone does something that is notorious or stupid or dumb and it's captured in a video media and it goes viral, there's a tendency of a lot of people to double down, and they want to wage a war in the media and, you know, post videos and social media and go to the news outlets. And Lord knows there's been no shortage of correspondences from state and national news agencies asking to have a one-off interview with Miss Hunter. My email inbox is literally chock full of them right now. And to her credit, and I think this is in part due to her understanding and her sympathy with Miss Sprague, I think this is in part due to the person that she now is. She understands that that's just not what needs to happen. We started negotiating a resolution in this case almost immediately because she's never in any way, shape, or form disputed or tried to sidestep responsibility for any of this. She has taken it on from the get-go. And if she wanted to go on Dateline NBC or, you know, whomever and go on there and plead her case and turn this into a big thing where she's part victim or this is about her, she probably could have done it. We would have had no issue setting it up, but she did not elect to go down that path. And I think that that is very telling in terms of how she has addressed this. She has tried to come through with as much humility as possible. She does not want to turn this into a big media circus or anything like that. In fact, far from it. And that is reflected by all of the action she's undertaken since the moment it happened. Literally from the moment she called her husband after all this happened, she has absolutely understood what she did in those actions. And she is completely regretful and remorseful for everything. So we would just ask that the court take all of those factors into consideration in fashioning a sentence that's somewhere along the lines of what was negotiated in the case.
She, in her letter to me, she said one of the reasons, the main reason why she did this was because she didn't want her children to be filmed. Well, video. Well, first of all, I didn't know until today it was 15 minutes of inappropriateness. And the children, for the most part, were at a different part of the store. You did see a little glimpse of one of the children. Also, I didn't know until today that there was actually saliva that came out of her mouth onto the victim. And also, she's complained about social media and such. But I heard her in the video, she says, okay, you want to record, let me give you something to record. Put that out there or something. So those were her words. Those was her words. So therefore, she can't say she was concerned about what was going to be on social media when that's what she said to the victim. So anything else, folks, from the defense of the state?
Well, Judge, if I may just briefly address that one point. While certainly the clip of the video we saw, her children were not the subject of that video, but I do believe that Miss Hunter's perception of the situation was that her children were on the video. Now, whether that was a misperception or not, I mean, I know I saw clips of the video where I actually saw more than just the children on there. And that's not to say that Miss Sprague was walking around filming her children. I'm not suggesting she was, but I think that my client's take on the situation may have been different than what the actual circumstance was. I mean, obviously hindsight is 20/20 with that.
What about her thoughts about her children being exposed to and witness 15 minutes of her inappropriate behavior in the studio?
The yelling was not.
Well, again, Judge, I think that there was a progression of that. I mean, I guess it kind of hinges on what the court considers inappropriate.
Okay, all right, we're going back and forth. Any other further argument from the state of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
I would just like to say thank you to Ms. Sprague for being here. This was a difficult hearing for her. She was asked a lot of questions about the facts of the case, and she read or attempted to read a statement that was very eloquent and taking into consideration everything in this case. So I thank her for her words, and there's no argument I could make that is more eloquent than what she's already told the court. So I thank her for her presence today.
Yes, I second that. Ms. Sprague, you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, Your Honor, just thank you for your
So how are your children at this time?
They are thriving.
Okay, good.
Sunshine.
Okay, Mrs. Hunter, you previously in a plea, you authorized your attorney in a plea of no contest, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you authorized them to enter a plea your own free will, which means no one forced you or coerced you to enter a plea.
I'm sorry, I think it's,
No one forced you or coerced you.
no, sir.
You enter a plea, you authorized them to enter a plea because you feel it's in your best interest?
In my best interest?
You
Yes.
authorized them to enter a plea because you feel it's in your best interest. Okay, you understand that once you're in a plea that you're waiving or giving up your constitutional rights, which are the right to remain silent, right to have an attorney appointed to represent you free of charge if you cannot afford one, right to have a trial, right to call witnesses who are willing to come forth and testify in your behalf for trial, right to cross-examine any witness state may call to testify against you, right against self-incrimination, which means you can't be compelled to testify against yourself. And also by entering a plea, you waive or give up your right to appeal all matters in the case, including issues involving guilt or innocence and the judgment and sentence in this case. You understand that, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Does she have a prior record?
No, sir.
No, sir.
There's no need for me to give the portion about being a violent sexual offender and things of that nature. And a portion of the plea dialogue which relates to being a U.S. citizen. If you're not a U.S. citizen, the plea may subject you to deportation pursuant to guidelines of Department of Homeland Security. And furthermore, if you've been deemed a violent sexual offender / predator, this plea may subject you to be taken into custody pursuant to the Human Rights Act with the Department of Corrections. You understand that, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a second-degree misdemeanor, which is punishable up to 60 days in Duval County Jail and up to a probationary period up to 6 months. I will adjudicate you guilty, place you on 6 months probation with the understanding you will be required to participate in the mental health evaluation and follow-up treatment if the counselor determines it is appropriate. And also parenting skills in light of what took place, your behavior in the presence of the children. And it's reasonable for me to believe that wasn't the only episode the children had witnessed. Also, or been exposed. Also, anger management, and it'll be $500 fine plus surcharge. How many days credits does she have?
1 day, Your Honor.
It'll be also 30 days Duval County Jail with credit for 1 day. So, Mr. Carson, the question is, when she doesn't have to report today, I give her an opportunity to get affairs in order. So, how much time you need, Mr. Carson?
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, in terms of how is this actually going to look? Is she going to report to J3? Is she going to just report to the jail? I haven't, via Zoom, I haven't encountered this situation yet.
Okay, well, you want to escort her to Duval County Jail or I have a report to J3? What's your preference?
Either way, I mean, I'd probably rather just have her go straight in because I think that J3 kind of prolongs the process. So I think
if she should show up at the back door to jail, it may be a bit problematic. They may say, we don't have any paperwork.
Okay, understood, and that's fine, Judge. If we just want to, I guess, set an imposition date on J3, that probably is the cleanest way to do it.
Okay, well, when?
Well, her kids are in school. When does the school year end?
I think at the end of May.
Okay, yeah, so we're still a ways out from the end of the school year. I mean, would the court be inclined to do either 2 weeks or a month? I mean, I'll defer to Your Honor.
It could be the week of April 19th or the week of May 3rd. Which one you want?
I think probably longer is better, give you more preparation.
April 19th.
Just a moment, Your Honor.
What is today?
Today is the 8th.
No, I'd rather just get it over with.
You want to just go ahead and do it?
Yeah.
All right, Judge. We will, if we could do the 19th in J3, I guess, for imposition.
Okay, April 19th, 9 o'clock, courtroom J1 for her to start her sentence. Now she needs to
J1 or J3?
J3. Now she must report to the probation officer within 48 hours. So that means working day. So that means Monday. She reported to probation.
Sorry, Judge.
Yes.
She can just report to the police memorial building. I'm doing the paperwork now as we speak, so the jail will already have her paperwork and her sentence paperwork already. There's no reason for her to report to J3.
Oh,
That's
okay.
just for felony.
Well, say that again.
She just can report to the police memorial building. I'm doing the paperwork now as we speak, so the jail will already have her sentence paperwork when she arrives.
Okay, so she reports to to the Duval County Jail on the 19th.
Yes, sir.
The 19th at 9 o'clock. Now, I'll be in court that day, Mr. Carson. So therefore, if there's a problem, you can let me know. You know where to find me. Also, she needs to report to probation department within 48 hours, which means it has to be on Monday, 48 working hours at 328 North Ocean Street. Condition of her probation is to not to have any contact with the victim, be it direct, indirect, no comments on social media, nothing along those lines. And now I understand about her going on Dr. Phil or whomever you mentioned, but I understand that because of some episodes that occurred in the past, that there's a provision in the law that says that one should not profit from their criminal episodes. So therefore, if she derives any monies, books, things, book deals or whatever, then it's my understanding that all of the proceeds of all of that should in fact go to the victim. You understand that, Mr. Carson?
I do, Your Honor. I'm familiar with it.
Okay, all right. So make sure your client is aware of it. Okay, so that's it, folks. I appreciate your professionalism.
May we heard there was a restitution request from Ms. Sprague.
I'm sorry, you're right, which is for of the restitution in the amount of 100, and I wrote it down.
$150, Your Honor.
$150. Okay.
And Your Honor, one additional point of clarity. My client is a resident of Nassau County. I assume the court would have no objection to her transferring probation, or in the alternative, doing mail-in.
No, I have no objection. I have no objection. She could do mail-in, or she just work it out with her probation officer. It shouldn't be a problem. Anything else, folks?
Your Honor,
Yes, Aiden,
she does have a 753 cash bond,
how much?
753.
Okay, we use that cash bond to, first of all, to pay to reimburse the victim, number one, off the top, and then the other is to offset the cost of the $500 fine plus cost. So therefore, whatever is outstanding after we use the cash bond, that she'll be responsible for paying. Anything else?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Heather, hopefully this gives you some degree of closure. Okay. And I wish you well. Wish you Godspeed. All right. Good day.